My parents were actually going to name me and my brother Bert and Ernie.
Well, it's on the recording, so just so you guys know, that's how we're starting this episode of the Self-Publishing Podcast. Dave with Bert and Ernie.
I wish your name was Ernie.
That would be great. Dave would make a good Ernie. I'd like everybody who's watching live to look at Dave and imagine Ernie.
I
can see it in a weird way.
Okay, here's the thing. We could actually just start calling him Ernie. Like, what's he going to do? Like, he could say, stop it.
But what am I going to do? I don't know. I'm going to see you in a little while.
Oh, Ernie's coming to Austin.
Good
Dave
times for all.
Like Ernie? Oh, thanks.
So, today we're going to talk about naming things. And that would be your children, according to Logan, but more specifically, maybe to the point, would be for books and characters and cities and companies. And I actually don't know how much naming Dave does, but in our collaboration, Sean is very good at it and names everybody, and I'm terrible at it. And so there were several things. Yeah, there were several things in a recent draft where Sean was like, because it was just the point he was trying to make was that we work so quickly that we aren't, and so apparently fluidly that we don't remember these things. And so he said, did I name that? Did I name that? And I said, dude, listen to those. Clearly you named that. Like, I'm not coming up with those names. I come up with things like, the story is in the Dream Engine, I needed a name for Cora's father, and I just put in a placeholder, and I figured Sean was going to change it because that's the way I always did it. I would just, when I made things up, I just put things in. And so I named him Jerome, and the dude was so not a Jerome. And Sean left it. But then the best part was when we wrote the sequel, The Nightmare Factory, Sean came up with a new name, and I think it was like Samuel or something, and he cast, what's his name? Gwen Stefani's ex-husband.
Gavin
Rossdale. And so he was just like, and you imagine Gavin Rossdale named Jerome, and it's just oh man. And I said, well, it's too late now, dude. We already gave that guy a name.
Well, okay, so the problem was he was just a walk-on character, and it didn't seem
not even a walk-on character. It was
Gavin
referred to
character. All right, he is your center focus.
Right. Okay, but in the
somebody
Dream
referred to him. It was like, I need to get you back so that I don't know what the mother's name was, but it was so that Caitlin and Jerome won't worry. That was it. Like he had no lines, nothing. It was just I needed a name.
And so I didn't change that. And we have a couple more funny naming stories when we get into the topic.
So we'll get into all that. But before that, does anybody have anything cool?
Well, we did just have an episode 10 minutes ago, but I do actually have something cool. So this is I've just been reading a book about like time management, right? I think it's called like 15 Secrets from like Super Successful People. It's got a long title. I wish I remember.
Is it a real book or one of those books that's churned out by like somebody that's got like 90,000?
No, it's definitely a real book. And what's kind of cool about it is that I have a lot of friends who are being like referenced in the book. In fact, Johnny, you were referenced in the book in the last chapter I read. Yeah.
They didn't reference me?
They did not. They did not.
What not to do?
So hold on and I'll tell you.
If I mention,
he wants to read it because he's mentioned just in case you guys didn't
buy a copy and show his kids. Look.
It's called 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. The Productivity Habits of 7 Billionaires, 13 Olympic Athletes, 29 straight-A students, 239 entrepreneurs. So I think
Hitler in there?
Hitler is not in there. I think you're one of the 239 entrepreneurs. But I also saw like Monica Lionel was mentioned. Honore was mentioned. Danny Iny was mentioned.
Do we know the writer?
No, I don't. Kevin Cruz is
Kevin Cruz. I feel like I've exchanged emails with Kevin. That's very, very familiar. And there are two places that I'm thinking I may know a couple of Kevins. So
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, there's some good takeaways. Most of it is just obvious stuff that we all know, right? Like wake up early, eat well. Like basically it's Dave's hate list.
I'm like, time mismanagement.
You know what? I know we always joke about this, but I genuinely think if you wrote some like anti-books, like
I'm doing it.
how to fuck up your day or something like that. It would be like how to not believe in anything. Or
Dave, I've recently improved my flow by getting up later. I'm not even kidding.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like I mean, how to win your marriage would be great, but I also think like the power of negative thinking could be amazing too. Like there are these books inside you, and I don't even think they'd be hard to write.
Well, I told y'all what I wrote.
Why are you putting books inside you? I hate that. It's so disgusting.
They don't fit very well.
So anyway, this in this book, there's an email management thing that I love, and it's because email's still like a problem for me. Like I'm a couple hours a day, and it's just I can't really get out of it. And I really like this. It's so simple, and I'm gonna see if it works. I've tried it for the last couple of days, and it's been great. And it's just called 3210 email. And it's you check email 3 times a day. That's it, which I actually like because a lot of the email triage suggestions are like just do email once a day. And that's not realistic.
People who clearly don't rely on email for their work.
Right. Wait, Johnny, you do check just once a day?
When I'm not being bad about it. Yeah, that's
and I've tried that many times, but invariably I have to check it for something or I'm letting someone down. Like there's just too much inflow that I need to hit email more than once a day. That's not a reasonable expectation. So I like that it's 3 because I could do that. I could do beginning, middle, end, and just be quick. The 2-1 is set your timer for 21 minutes, and that's just it. So, boom, 3 minutes, 21 minutes or less, touch stuff once.
I think that author needed a gimmick.
Right.
21 minutes.
Right. Well, and then 0 is after your 3 times 21 minutes, you should be at inbox 0. And it's worked really well. And it's 3 times 20. Like that's keeping me to email for an hour a day. And
hold on, I'm going to open my email and see how many I have unread.
38 million.
I would not doubt it.
Gmail does not count that high. Yeah. So, anyway, I love that it is a bit gimmicky, but who cares if it helps me like stay on task and not because I get lost in email. Like Cindy will say, okay,
28,481 emails.
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Why do you even bother? Because leaving them unread and in your inbox implies that you're going to get to some of them.
Yeah.
So how do you get to the things when we email you? How do you get to them? Because there's not a hate-filled rant that doesn't make it through to you. So clearly,
I see if I recognize a name. If I recognize a name, then I open it. Or if it looks like it's obviously from a reader or something, I open it. But usually it's nonsense.
Well, I like Dave's solution. And if you don't, his filter is if he doesn't already know who you are, fuck off. He might as well just do that.
Amy is saying in the comments he doesn't answer my emails, which is not unique to these comments. I've actually heard this complaint by many people on our team several times. So I would just posit that maybe your email solution isn't as fluid as you think it is. So anyway, and in all caps, I email you all the time, Dave.
I think that's probably why he's not noticing it.
Well, do you remember in the last episode where he was talking about how because I don't nag him, he wants to please me, but if people are taskmasters, he's like, fuck them.
Well, no, I cannot keep up with all the intercompany email that y'all fucking have. Seriously, it makes me want to cry. It makes me want to crawl.
We don't do much intercompany email. We do it in Slack. There isn't a lot.
Like all this, like just all the shit, but all the stuff that goes on in email, like. I can't handle it. So, like, if I open it, I'm lost. 3, 2, 1, fuck that. It's like 3 hours, 21 days, 0 time left for me. I can't handle it. I'm lost.
You do realize that you're copied on like 5% of what happens in the company.
Yeah,
right. And then Amy's like, I think that we know. I think we found the solution to the quote. No one told me about that problem that Dave sometimes raises.
Oh, yeah, this is good stuff. Okay, what's your something cool, Dave? 28,000 emails in your inbox that you don't have to pay attention to?
I open most company emails. Most of the ones that's actually
most company emails.
That's actually like my personal email thing that I have. So that's not even a company email. The Sterling and Stone account, there's only 500 unread emails.
All right. Well, since I have like 95% plus what you do, that's why I need email systems. And I think 321 is awesome. So I'm gonna.
If Amy say, does he not realize how he's putting his foot in his mouth? I'm not putting my foot in my mouth. I'm not ignoring company emails. If it's obviously something that I need to do and it says my name in there, or it's something that I'm aware of, then I open it. But most shit has nothing to do with me, and I'm just copying on it, and I'm not reading all that. I can't. I just cannot keep up.
Okay, so I'm glad we're having company therapy right now.
Right. This happened in the last show. Stop.
My something cool is Westworld on HBO. Holy shit, that show is so good. If you're not familiar with it,
I have 21,000 unopened shows that Dave says I should watch.
if you're not familiar with Westworld, it's based on a Michael Crichton movie from like the early 70s
with Yul Brenner.
Yeah, but they take it in a different place. It's about people that basically pay to go into this simulated world with androids that are basically acting like humans and living out a Wild West fantasy. They changed it up a bit for this. I mean, it's still the same general premise, but they've added a whole layer of mystery there, and you don't really know what's going on. And that the androids think that they're human, like they don't know basically that they're being programmed, and they're wiped like every day and like reset. So there's like this, the pilot episode I wasn't in love with, and a lot of people like it. It was critically very well received. I didn't think the mystery was there enough, but by the second episode,
you never think the mystery is there enough.
Yeah, well, no, that's not true. Lost, I was immediately hooked on. And Alias, I was immediately hooked on. And a few others. But anyway.
Dead City.
Yes.
No, the mystery was not enough in Dead City.
Oh, not in the first few chapters. You guys took a little while. But anyway. But the second episode and the third, I think they're on 4 now. Third or fourth. I forget which one just aired. But wow, it is so damn good. And here's the thing. And Logan said, I didn't like the pilot. I haven't watched any of the others. So watch it, Logan. Because it has to do with like storytelling. Like it's very meta. And it has to do with like, you know, reality and what's real, what's not. And there's also like they don't tell you when. There's like a couple subplots, and they don't tell you when those are happening, which leads me to believe that we're not watching everything. It's not all happening at the same time. I'm not sure yet. And that's what I love not knowing. And there's just so many layers of mystery, and there's like the people that basically run Westworld, like the story engineers or whatever they call themselves, I don't even know. They basically have to, kind of like a video game, like an open world video game. They have to give these characters a backstory. Then they have to change stories. But there's a variable of the guests that come to the park. Like they're basically shooting and raping anybody they want. That's what they're there for. And whenever they do something that throws off the storyline, they have to find a way to like adjust for that. And there's like a constant like changing of things. But there's also I'm doing a horrible job explaining it, but there's another guy who so far has just been called is an older guy. Just they're calling him the Man in Black, and he's a guest there, and he's like trying to find out something. And there's like this huge mystery.
Is that Ed Harris?
Yeah. There's a huge mystery, and he's like going around killing things, and rather viciously. And you think like he's a bad guy, he's a bad motherfucker, but then there's a scene where somebody's talking to him and they say something about how his organization like helped their family. So he might be like this good guy, but you think he's a bad guy. It's like you don't know what the fuck is going on, and I love it. And it's just so good. And I'm doing a horrible job of explaining it.
No, it sounds really amazing. I've actually I was watching the development because it was one of those shows that had some not negative buzz, but like really uncertain buzz because it had some reshoots and it had been delayed for over a year. And so, of course, people are circling the wagons and saying, oh, this is going to be terrible. But the buzz is, since its release, has been fantastic.
And I'm surprised it's doing well because it's a very intelligent show. And I was certain that people wouldn't have patience for it. And
well, it's HBO, though. So that is.
Well, they don't always give shows time. Carnival, they destroyed. What do you call it? Can't remember the name of it now.
Yeah, but this has hella pedigree, dude. This has Michael Crichton, it has Jonathan Nolan. Like this HBO believes in this clearly, and they're spending big money on it. I'm just waiting until the season's done so I can watch them all at once. But I'm
Deadwood. Yeah, they canceled Deadwood.
Yeah, Deadwood.
Crime Against Humanity.
Yeah. Did you know? I heard this. Have you seen The Get Down on Netflix?
No.
Okay, so The Get Down is Baz Luhrmann's show about like hip hop in like the really early 80s. Right. And I like Baz Luhrmann. He's messy as all hell, but I actually I appreciate what he's trying to do, but I just could not get into The Get Down. Like it bored me. I watched 3 episodes and I was out. And I heard that it was super expensive to make and I just didn't see it. Like, you know, I'm looking at I understand it's like recreating 70s era New York is not easy. And they did that, but still it was like, I think a lot of the expense is going towards a lot of extras and a lot of just messy making where he doesn't know how to budget himself. But I just read it's Netflix's first major flop because it's super expensive and it doesn't have the critical acclaim and people don't care. Like we're tuning out, like it's just consumers. So I was actually staggered to find out how much per episode they spend on The Get Down. It's the most expensive TV show in history. Doesn't look like it at all. And just for comparison's sake, like how much do you think they spend on The Get Down? And here's the comparison. Game of Thrones is 10 million an episode. And we can see the money on screen there.
It can't be more than 10 million.
17 million an episode.
How much of that is music rights?
Well, a lot, but not all of it. They're also paying like Grandmaster Flash, and I think Nas gets a big fee. But a lot of it is just it's ballooned because Baz Luhrmann, like ahead of time, they'd secured a lot of the rights and a lot of budget went to that. But then beyond that, it's expensive because he doesn't have his shit together. Like it's really messy, and he's like, I'll fix it in post. But it's just it's very expensive. So it's Netflix's first certified like flop.
My something cool is going to be
I want to watch it just to see if it's that bad. I'll probably love it and they won't finish it.
I'm sure.
Mine is short and kind of a non something cool because I don't have a lot to report, but it's just something cool. And that's that we are beginning to look back into print seriously. This has always bugged me. Print in terms of effort versus reward usually seems, especially to most indies, like very, very clearly 20% because it's usually a lot of extra work, especially if you do something, if you do hardbacks and you have to have all these different, graphics and stuff like a full dust jacket and stuff. And you're not going to sell a lot in print. So we if I were to do percentage wise, I just saw some estimates and I think that books versus ebooks, it's something like it's like just a few percent of what we make, of what we sell. Like I would say 2 to 3% ebooks versus paperbacks. And that's just paperbacks. It's not even hardbacks. And so, but this has always really bugged me because there's still a lot of print books in the world. Like I know people say that ebooks are the future, and a lot of people
especially depending on your market too, like middle grade and nonfiction are both huge. And
right. And I know that I don't even want to receive actual books anymore just because I don't need the clutter and I'm used to reading on a reader. But like I go around and there are still bookstores and there are still, major outlets and Walmart and or whatever, and Target still have book sections, and there's Costco has books that, like you see in airports, you still see a lot of paper books, and I still see a lot of people reading paper books. And so just intuitively, like intelligently, it doesn't make sense to me, but I know that it's a hard thing to crack into. And so we're just sort of really like, now that we have our systems a little better at Sterling & Stone, we're moving something like, I want to say we're moving like 100 print titles, paperback and hardback, setting those up. I was talking to reps earlier this week, and looking back into, researching, trying to figure out the best ways to crack into that. We had a podcast guest long time ago, Amy Collins, and she was great, and we haven't been able to get in touch with her again, and we've tried, but like, I'd love to find experts like that again and just really start looking into printing. So maybe that was it. So that's about it. But the only thing I would say before we get into our topic is I have been looking for an event to attend that would be, sort of a high octane event. That would have a lot of speakers. That would have a wide spectrum of hosts, from giddy to intense to angry / unconscious. And I just don't know where I could find that perfect mix. Say in the Southwest, Texas area in the end of April of next year. That's my time frame.
South by Southwest?
No, although that may be a mistake. Maybe we don't want to look at events in the same time frame as that. But no, that's not the one I'm looking for.
Oh, yeah.
Austin City Limits.
No, we schedule other things during Austin City Limits.
Smarter Artists?
Smarter Artist Summit, April 26th and 27th of 2017 in Austin, Texas. This fits the bill perfectly.
Oh, is that the thing you guys are drugging me and putting me on a plane to go to?
Right. We've sent you some pills and said, just take these and you'll wake up in a happy place.
I'm not falling for that again. It took me forever to get out of that base.
So we're looking forward to it. It's a 2-day event, like I said, April 26th and 27th, second annual in Austin, Texas. And
more than 2 bathrooms, I hear.
More than 2
will
bathrooms.
Will those bathrooms have glory holes?
I don't know.
If not, they will after Logan goes in.
But if they in those bathrooms, I think it's safe to get your ayahuasca on as long as you have your shaman. And we're going to have we have 6 speakers lined up in addition to the 3 of us. Jenna Sword, branding expert. David Gaughran, may have heard of that guy. Calvin Chinier is going to talk about business for authors. Christine, our marketing expert. And Clark, our developmental editor. And Chris Fox, the guy who, we don't have enough good stuff to say about Chris Fox.
Yeah,
right to market, 5,000 words per hour, all that stuff.
To break away from the funny here, just for a moment, I will say, I didn't know what to think last time, when we were doing this. I would never do this on my own. I would never hold any event on my own.
What percentage of stuff in your life would you never do on your own, though?
No, very little. I would be writing. I just probably would not have published maybe 1 book by now. I don't know. And I would draw. I drew a lot of comics on my own. I can manage that. But everything else, no, especially public things. But I have to say that when we had the summit last year, it was, my fear was that it would be like one of those just fucking things where people annoy the shit out of me and just everybody.
Isn't that everything?
Well, I've been to events in the past and it's just a big fucking sales gimmick and everybody's there just to network, and there was none of that here. It was just a bunch of people that were really cool, and it was the exact opposite of what I feared it would be. I didn't think you guys would put that event on, but I just feared that it might become that on its own, and it wasn't. Everybody there was awesome. Everybody was helpful. It was truly cool people to be around, and it was a very laid back sort of fun thing, and I did not expect that at all.
And actually, to the point from the FAQ from the page at smarterartistsummit.com, the question is, can I be an asshole? And the official answer is, well, we have a very strict 1 asshole rule, and Dave has already claimed the spot.
I am not an asshole.
You can fight him for it, but you will lose. But you're here and still reading, so you're probably not a jerk anyway.
There should be a steel cage on the stage that anybody that is an asshole, they get put in there and they have to fight other assholes, like a troll room.
Oh, I kind of like having a troll room.
Like a Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Amy goes on to say, so pretty much you can't because you aren't like that anyway. The smart artist community is worth protecting. So if you're a douche, Amy will light you on fire or somebody will do it for her because we all have heard that much.
Logan said, I'll be keeper of the troll room. And I'd love to attend an event that Dave put on.
I would too. Davapalooza 2018, y'all.
So the 3 of us, including Dave.
Florida.
I would hold Davapalooza in Florida. That's fair.
All right.
The 3 of us,
5 tickets.
3 of us, including Dave, are speakers, and many rep types that you would know. Some of which I can't announce, but some of which I can. Like Mark from Kobo will be there, Dan Wood from Drafted Digital, and plus other unannounced guests, I believe.
It was very cool hanging out with Mark and Dan and everybody else that we hung out with. It was just, I enjoyed it. It was one of those things where I was actually happy.
Mark is the friendliest
actually happy
hitman guy you've ever seen. He looks like a hitman, and he's so friendly. So
Killian says, I think if Dave and I brush hands, the universe will end like dark matter. Are you also OCD, Killian?
So we'll finish this one up. It's smarterartistsummit.com, and I will mention that it's almost 2/3 sold out already, and that this episode won't air for like 5 weeks after we're recording it, so it'll probably be down to the wire. So we would take it. No, that would suck. Like if the ad read comes out and it's already sold out, that would suck.
Here's this thing you can't get.
It's amazing. Let's tell you how great it is. We probably shouldn't record anymore until we see the trajectory. All right. Anyway, so moving into naming stuff.
Yeah. So this is, I think this is something that every writer has to deal with, but I don't know how much importance a lot of writers actually place on naming. So I think there's a lot to naming. Certainly your characters, right? Every character in your book needs a name, and name says a lot about identity. You also have locations, like little cities, little towns. You have businesses within your locations. You also have the title of your book, which is a really big thing to name. We were talking to someone just recently, last night actually, I was talking to somebody about naming their book. She's like, I wrote this book in 3 weeks and it's really great and I'm done, but I have no idea what to name it. And so we were talking about how to figure out how to name it, because
my book.
she's
my struggle, Mein Kampf, as it were.
She's a fast writer, but naming is very difficult for her. And I think that naming can be really fun, but it can also be really tedious if you don't like it. So I think it's one of those things. Take a drink. It's a know your why. Why are you naming people certain things? Why are you naming businesses certain things? There needs to be rhyme and reason to it, because the more believable your names are, the more reality your story is going to have for your reader. And it doesn't need to be like Tarantino's names, like his character names, and actually not just his characters' names, his worlds. He's very good at naming things. So if you've got look at his world, there's the characters all smoke red apple cigarettes, right? That's just unique to his movies. You'll see them, and it's not a lot of attention is drawn to it. But I was watching Hateful Eight, and I loved it because this is now taking place in the 1800s, and they go into Minnie's haberdashery, and they're asking for tobacco, and she's like, "What do you chew?" And there's a pouch of red apple tobacco, right?
Apple, ma'am.
So it's just kind of cool, right? Big Kahuna Burgers, it's in his world, and he has characters' names that are just really kind of cool. Marcellus Wallace, that's just a cool character name, right? And so it makes you love those characters a little bit more. It makes you believe the world a little bit more, because he clearly loves his characters. He clearly believes in his characters, and he gives them, fun, memorable names. And so how do you guys approach naming stuff? I mean, other than Johnny tagging things and saying name that later.
Well, I've named a few things, but I always use very pedestrian names. I name people things like John. I mean, no, I get a little more creative than that, but Sean had a character recently named Titus Washington. And he goes, "Did I name Titus?" And I go, "Dude, I was never going to name a guy Titus. That was never going to happen. I name people Jerome." It's very hard for me. And sometimes it comes very quickly, but usually not. So I'm not good at it at all. I can't really answer that.
I give a lot of thought to names, and I tend to in the past I wasn't very good. Like we had for Available Darkness, I wish we had named the brothers something different. They sound a little similar, but it's one of those things where I spend a lot of time on it, and I try to avoid anything too flashy that calls attention to it. It's like putting on a bright pink suit with sparklies on it or something.
I love when you do that.
Isn't that what you're going to wear to the summit?
Yes, if they make one for me. Mauricio is not mine. That's actually Sean Mauricio. Beth,
I know the naming started
Mauricio, and I would never have thought of Mauricio, and that was a great name. I tend to think, I try to give have the name have some sound or something that kind of gives you an idea who it would be. But it's hard to do because not everybody's reference points are the same. Not everybody would, Brent Foster might mean something to one person than another. So I don't know. Sean though, Sean's really good, especially with like store names. He comes up with clever names, and I that's one of my favorite things that he does.
What I think Sean also, with rare exceptions, I would guess, is naming in advance, which I'm now realizing the reason that I'm so shitty with names is because I just need to get past it. I'm in the middle of a draft. Like I'm not interested in stopping the name.
That's pre-production stuff. That's why like it is important. Like I know all the characters' names and business names too, because it's part of it. Like and if you can think of business names that feel like real places, there's just so much more you can do there because your reader believes it. So okay, well here's one of my favorite naming stories. That was actually, Johnny, why don't you tell this one? It's the from the Beam season 2, I think. X.
Oh well, this one is an anti-naming story. But after Sean and I established. After Sean and I established,
do you know this story, Dave?
He's heard it before. He just probably wasn't paying attention. After Sean and I established that we were that I'm bad at naming because I usually am in a rush. I'm just trying to go through something. He knew that. Like he was just aware that was my tendency. And so I said, dude, you can change any name. Just do it. And so we had a character who was like. From an anonymous, basically the evolved version of like 4chan's Anonymous or something. Like it was a large anonymous group that moved beneath the scenes of the Beam, and so there was a major player in there, and I figured he would be anonymous, but apparently not totally anonymous because he had a name, but it would be like somebody who you didn't know, and so I just called him X. Like that was his name, and his name was X, and it would be a screen name, so it would make sense. It's not like people are walking up to him and calling him X. It was just how he went by on this whatever the board we came up with. And so Sean went through the draft, and he saw X and thought, oh, it's a placeholder. Johnny's changing a placeholder, so he changed the name to integer 7. And I don't think I saw it until it was all done. I was like, did you change X? And he was like, well, yeah, I thought it was supposed to change X. So, but that's not really a success story. That's
but it's a Y thing. So even if out of respect for you, I probably would not have changed X had I known. But I'm glad I did because X sounds like it's a little cliche, right? How many times has there been a mystery X, right? X is just, it's expected. And anytime you can give the reader something they've never seen before that makes absolute sense, right? And integer 7, it doesn't mean anything, but it sounds like a handle that some hacker would possibly adopt for reasons that meant something to them. We don't need to know why he's named integer 7, but there could be a million people named X. Integer 7 sounds very individual, like this person is integer 7. And so that makes it a more powerful name. So you want to dig deeper. Just don't be afraid to go. Don't be lazy when you're naming, I guess. And I think something that a lot of authors do that's just really tired. Well, there's 2 big things that authors do. And I think we've talked about one of these a lot and one not very much. So let's talk about the one we've talked about a lot first, which is just overcomplicating a name. You want a name that nobody's ever heard before, so you name your guy Quaxelblog. And it's just stupid because...
Oh, I was going to name my character Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo.
And that would work. You don't... Putting a Q and an X in one name does not make it original. It makes it hard to remember for your reader. And so you see that a lot in sci-fi and fantasy where they just have this really weird name and just try to simplify that, make it easy for your reader to remember.
Or you'll see it in science fiction where they're trying to do a science fiction-y name. He's an alien, so his name is Quaxelblorg. I mean, not the,
And it's just so stupid. And so... there are some writers who are good enough to play with that. So like Douglas Adams, in the Hitchhiker's books, he's got like Zaphoid Rebel-Brox.
But right? I think they work because it's clearly satire.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But if you're like doing that seriously, you're misstepping. And so, someone is asking in the comments about Baricio. And yeah, so Baricio was named, it was Ethan. He had a friend in his kindergarten class named Mauricio. And this is a good example of how to make a unique name that's original, that's not Quaxelblorg, right?
I think I came up with the last name though, right?
No.
I thought I did.
No. Mauricio Wolf was
credit somewhere.
And that was very intentional too. So Mauricio is just Mauricio with a B, because they're like, Mauricio is a name that we've all heard, but we've never heard Mauricio, and that's really just putting a bus down.
Mauricio is not necessarily a name that we've all heard. I have never heard that name until you mentioned it.
Mauricio? You've never heard of anyone named Mauricio?
Mm-mm.
He lived in Ohio.
Oh, I feel sorry for you. So yeah, Mauricio used to own the taco stand like 2 blocks from my house. But yeah, I actually know 3 Mauricios. But so anyway, just you're taking a name,
resisting the urge to make a joke of some sort
that exists, and changing it in that way. And then Wolf is, it's Wolf with an E. But still, I knew a kid in my 4th grade class named Daniel Wolf, right? And I just always thought that was a cool name, but I've never actually used it with anything. But
it's so appropriate for him.
Right, he's a hunter. Mauricio Wolf just sounded like that guy. So you want to think about what images does it, inspire in the reader? And wolf is a very specific image. I think that's a place where you want to know root meanings. Like if you can read one of those books. I think The Secret History of Our Language is a really good one. But just that tells you like what roots mean and what different words mean and word shapes and structures, because it, like Dave said earlier, a few minutes ago, that, like Brent Foster wouldn't necessarily mean something to somebody else. You don't know where they're coming from. And I think that's true, but I also think it's less important. As long as it really means something to you, and it's not just like Quaxelborg, but you actually can justify to yourself why that's a good name. That's a good start. The other thing I think a lot of authors make a mistake with is the alliteration. They just, yes, for every Severus Snape, there's also like some really, really bad names that are just. It doesn't mean alliteration can't work, but I see it often, especially in amateur feeling work. Where it's like a go-to, like, oh, I'm going to name my character, Abigail Adams. Well, that's probably a bad example, but you know what I mean.
I would also say that none of these are firm, rules that can be broken. I personally feel that every name doesn't need to be totally unique. You can occasionally have a John. Like It's just, especially if he's kind of a John, like honestly. If
actually, this is funny. I have a very specific example about a John. So Christine is on board, just change all the names. So I just got her draft and I was on it this morning, and she had 2 new characters and she asked me to please change their names. And one was named Joe. And I left it Joe because he was an incidental character who seemed like a Joe.
Joes don't matter. All you Joes out there.
So, all smart artists writing sci-fi need to start putting a Quaxelborg in their books. Right? I think we're going to need a Quaxelborg too. Space Shuttle for sure will have a Quaxelborg.
Right, and everybody can just point out that it's an absurd name.
So I think that it really just, it's almost like we always say, read your last draft aloud. That's how you're going to get the magic. That's how you're going to know, if things are there. Say the name out loud. If it's awkward for you to say because you think it looks good in print, if you say it out loud. If it doesn't sound right, it's not right.
Yeah, I think that this would be very much exception, not the rule, but the part of me wants to, so the Johnny, I think it's a Johnny Cash song, The Boy Named Sue. Is that Johnny Cash?
Yeah, that's Johnny Cash.
So I could see naming a character something that doesn't fit them at all, and that in itself would inform the character. Like if you had a really manly character and named him Sue, like that would make for some interesting stuff. I would think you would have to handle it.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
But it could make for a very interesting character. And just one thing to note too is some names are more attractive than others. I have seen plenty of discussions amongst romance people who say, oh man, if I see a character named Jean, I'm not interested in reading that book. Like it doesn't matter what the rest of the book is about. If the guy's name is Jean, it's just not attractive to me. So you have to keep those things in mind as well.
Is that name moist?
Moist. There's and then one other thing I was going to mention that I sort of chuckled a second ago is Sean is very good at naming, but he has one quirk that has bit us many times.
Oh, I know what this is. Yeah.
That sound very similar.
Yeah.
So in the Dream Engine, we had Willoughby, Wellington. There were a few other W's.
Yeah, I'll just get into a mode. And
you'll have to consider not just how it sounds, which you might not consider at all, but also how it reads. So there's two different ways, like how the person is reading it and how it sounds. Just two things you have to look out for with a name.
Right. Yeah, Walker was another. I feel like there was at least one more W.
Yeah, we had like 4 W's in that book.
And this one was totally my mistake, but in Invasion, we had a main character named Lila, and then I named an incidental character at the time, Liza. And it just didn't occur to me because it was a mention. It was like what the story we told about Jerome. Like
it wasn't Joe that turned into a main character.
Right. It was a viceroy, and we just needed to mention like the viceroy of this place was of Roman Sands. Actually, the viceroy would need to name it. I said, okay, Liza Knight, and Liza became a much bigger character, and that was a problem because then we had Liza and Lila. Now they didn't have any scenes together. Oh, what was the story that Scott Brick told? Oh, that was really funny.
Oh, about Kennedy.
Yes, and so Kennedy and Kennedy.
Yeah.
So just to scroll back, if you look for there's a self-publishing podcast where we had Scott Brick on. He's a very well-known narrator. He narrated Dead City, and he told a story about something that he was reading for like professionally reading, and it had 2 characters, and it was about Kennedy, and there was Kennedy and Kennedy. I want to say it was a reimagining. I don't think it was true, and so he had these 2 people. And they would have scenes together. Hello, said Kennedy. How are you, said Kennedy. And it was just like, oh, that's kind of a problem.
Gillian says, I'd buy a book named The Romance of the Outlaw Quaxelborg Dachshund Queen by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah, that's pretty
awesome. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, so
probably wouldn't sell well, but I like it.
Yeah, Killian also said that J.K. Rowling was great at names, and yeah, she is. She's a master. Her, Tarantino, and Stephen King are some of my favorite namers. King's characters, I always believe his names. Like he
has a specialty. He names names that are very blue collar Americana.
Yeah,
which is not the same as just generic general names.
No, he's super good at it too.
And I think one of the things you want to be very careful with, and this is like the mark of all bad sci-fi and fantasy, is not to get so exotic with your names. Like, okay, if you're going to get exotic with your names, keep it to a limit, because a person can only remember so many exotic names before they all start to sound the same.
So true.
And that is something that can really throw you off as a reader.
Yeah, I would also say be time appropriate. And what I mean by that is don't give somebody a name like a really modern name.
Bartholomew?
In a 1800s setting, right? You want to be, and so like Dream Engine is the one that Johnny was just talking about with like Willoughby and Wellington and all these names. And I think part of my problem there was that I'm very much trying hard to look for era appropriate and like setting
because
appropriate.
It's a steampunk,
right?
So it has an old timey feel, even if it's not strictly old timey.
Right. So we need names like Willoughby. It's a cool name. Now, is there too many W's? Yes, but the idea there is right. So
you could play with it though. Like you can like make it thematic where like it's sort of like a clue. Like if everybody with like a certain like W or something, like somehow they're all involved in something. I mean, you could play with the convention a bit, kind of tease the readers a bit.
I totally agree. But you just think when you're naming stuff, it's just an art, and it's worth taking the time, and it's worth taking the time to think ahead of time before you start your book. Get those character names out, and then don't be afraid to change them too. Now, this can be kind of hard if you're changing a character and you need to make it consistent throughout the book. But if you finish your book and you know who the person is and you don't think their name is right, the difference between a good character name and a great character name is different. There's also another example that I'd love to give, but I can't be specific on it because it's a secret project for now. But there was a name that I gave to somebody for a book that Johnny's writing, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't use that name." and I loved the name. It fit for the character, but it was just too funny. And
No.
So now you know what it is. Okay, yeah. So it had
I know what this is.
It
gave the wrong impression. It delighted Sean, but it was very wrong for the character and what we needed to do with the character.
Yeah, and Johnny was 100% right on that. Like, no doubt. And I didn't even fight for it because I knew I was wrong. Like, it's just that
but I had to remind you many times.
But I like the sound.
You didn't want to let it go.
Right, because, and we'll tell this story next year and it'll be funny because it is a really great name for this particular character, but Johnny was right. Like, contextually it was wrong. So just everything in your book will have a name, especially if you are like the Dream Engine has a lot of naming stuff, actually, that's just everyday objects, because this is a different world, right? So there's like the perturberance and like all these different things that have names, and they make the place feel real. So when you're going through your book, if it's not an everyday setting, really think about what would things in this world be named, because there's an underlying logic to everything, right? So like, yeah, there's too many W's, but that does follow an underlying logic. Like, Willoughby and Wellington, they sound like they're from the same world, and you want things to have like a thematic.
But your job as a writer is to walk the fine line between adding veracity to your story and creating clarity for the reader. So I could see doing a story where everybody had a W name and it was just something in the world, and you could explain it, and you could say literally every male character at least has a W name or something like that. The problem is, no matter how realistic you make that sound, you're going to confuse the shit out of your reader, and the trade-off is usually not worth it.
Because it can't be a tedious experience for your reader either.
Right.
Roll.
And the other thing that I would add sort of on those lines is when you have a lot of new names of things or people or anything like that. So perturberance is a really cool, by the way, did you come up with that? You must have come up with that.
Yeah.
I don't remember. So, but if you have a bunch of cool things like that, it really works if it's in a small dose, like you're just learning about the perturberance. But if you're learning it and you just in the last chapter had 10 new things, like I know that this is a really well-respected book and all of this, but for me, I didn't want to read it, and it was Clockwork Orange, because there is literally a fucking glossary in the back of the book. And for me, I get it. I get it that the lexicon is different. I get it that they have tons of slang, but I just didn't want to work that hard. So when I'm introducing new words, or especially if they're a little off center, or this is true of characters, is I give you one or two and let you get used to them, and then we'll introduce, okay, here's a new one now, and here's a new one now, rather than just like, here's all the shit in the world.
Right. And let's talk about titles for just a moment, because I know that we're running out of time, and I think titling your book is just, I mean, it's such a big conversion, right? It's huge. And the best way to do that is, clarity over cleverness. It's like your cover, right? You want to be genre appropriate. So genres have conventions to the way their titles are, what the books are called, right? So the best way to do that is to know who you're writing for. Know who you're writing for, know what genre you're warming up to, and then just go look around Amazon and see what other books in your genre are titled. And if I think it's often a writer's instinct to want to be different, right? And that makes sense for sure. But if you're in a genre where, the books are like let's take romance, because that's an area where you can't really play your own game, right? Like you kind of have to follow the rules.
Are you enjoying Dave's new look? I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's kind of got the long flowing on the sides thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of Dan Cortez from MTV Sports.
Oh, I can see that a little bit. Getting a little bit of Mary Tyler Moore.
Eddie Vedder. I put my hat on. My hair is in the way.
Eddie Vedder's hair is way wavier than yours, dude.
Well, I'm sorry, I have straight hair.
Like Dan Cortez.
I'll go get it permed.
You should. So if you're trying to name, a romance, and it's, they have very, they don't all sound the same, but they all are in the same family for sure. And you try to, what was that one up here that was in the in the chat.
Beetle Bop Quaxablorg.
The Romance of the Outlaw Quasilborg Dunks Queen by the Howard Robert Ford. That romance has zero chance. Like, okay, I take that back. It has
That's
like a
terrible
tiny
because
chance.
I'm pretty sure Killian was totally serious about that.
But it doesn't matter. It's like the idea of a name that or a title for a book that is just so out there. It can work because it's so out there, but it's just doubtful. It's probably not going to happen.
We should have a challenge on this show, like once a year, have a challenge, like the most preposterous thing, and see who can make it into a success.
Oh, I love that.
50 Shades of Quaxablorg. But I mean, you could name a science fiction book like the life and times and ups and downs of so and so, and it's just like it could be the most science fiction-y awesome thing ever. But people can look at that title and be like, "That doesn't look like science fiction." So
Right.
that depends. And subgenres too. If you're writing a space opera, that has a feel. If you're writing a military fiction, that has a feel. You want to imply a gambit or a strategy or an invasion or something like that. If that's what your book is about. So, all right. So, do we want to wrap up?
Yeah. I like that. That was good.
We have another show to do, huh?
We do. It's worst show ever, and nobody should watch it.
This one's going to be extra bad.
Extra bad. But those of you who are not going to watch that, for everybody, just a final reminder, hopefully this hasn't sold out yet, so this isn't a total ball buster, but the Smarter Artist Summit is, of course, I closed the thing. Is it the 27th and 28th of April, I want to say, in Austin,
Yes.
Texas. And it's 2/3 sold. Just so I know it's not. 26th and 27th.
Oh, well, there you
Well,
go.
I said it hesitantly, and then I like that Sean said, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Well, no, the 27 was in there. It sounded right.
26th and 27th of April 2017 in Austin, Texas. It's 2/3 sold out as of the end of October. So by the time this runs, hopefully you'll still be able to get that. It's at smarterartistsummit.com. And if you're getting to the end of the year, I'll go ahead and tell you that if there are still tickets available when it becomes 2017 at the end of the year, that's when the discount ends. And so it actually goes up in price. So make sure you get in. And that's it. Smarterartistsummit.com. Thank you for listening to the Self-Publishing Podcast. We'll see you next time.